today's episode, we are going to define some key terms to know as you prepare to start your podcast. Welcome to Podcasting Q&A, where you learn the best tips and strategies to launch, grow, and monetize your show. Oftentimes, it's not until you start the research portion of starting a podcast that you realize podcasting has its own language. What is an RSS feed? What is a directory? Why do I need a hosting site? No problem. We are going to go over those terms and more to make sure that you knowledgeably can start your podcast and impress all of your friends. First term up is RSS feed. RSS simply stands for really simple syndication. Your RSS feed is the page of raw data where the information about your podcast is stored. So what does this mean for you? If you host with Buzzsprout, you simply go to your Directories page and you will find a little tab there that says RSS feed. And you actually don't really need it unless, of course, you are submitting to a directory. Next term to know, hosting site. Hosting sites are basically like a house for your podcast, like Buzzsprout. We are a hosting site. So hosting sites usually track your downloads or listens, and they also push your podcast out to directories, which we'll talk about next. And what's important to know is that we host or hold all of your podcast episode and audio files. There are tons of different hosting sites for you to choose from, and obviously only you will be able to pick the one that's best for you. Buzzsprout. Pick Buzzsprout. Term number 3. Directories. A directory is basically like the yellow pages, for those of us old enough to remember the yellow pages, or a catalog of podcasts. And oftentimes these directories also have apps. And the apps are where you can go to listen to a podcast, rate, review, share, subscribe to that podcast. Some of the major directories are Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Amazon Music. These are places where people can go and listen to your podcast. Generally speaking, the more directories that your podcast is listed in, the more opportunities for people to listen to your content, share your content, subscribe to it. And that, my friends, is audience growth. Monetization. So monetization essentially means taking an asset, it's got value to it, and leveraging it to create cash money. This is what we're trying to do with a podcast that is likely a little bit more than a passion project. There are a lot of ways that you can monetize your podcast. You can run ads, get sponsorships. You can also be listener supported through something like a Patreon or even donations like Cash App or PayPal. And if your podcast is a little bit more than a passion project, monetization is likely one of your podcasting goals. Next term. Niche or niche, whichever. So a podcast niche is basically a very narrowly defined topic of interest to a particular group of people. You want to decide what your podcast niche is. And this is really important because it helps you define who you're making content for. Knowing your niche is a very important part of having a successful podcast. And then our final term, it's actually 2 terms, serial versus episodic. And this is essentially just a different way of structuring your podcast episodes. So a serial structure is like a series, right? So think of like Stranger Things. You can't just hop in on episode 1, season 2, and know what's happening. You'd have to have watched all the episodes of season 1 to know what's happening at the beginning of season 2. Same thing with your podcast episodes. They follow in a series. So to understand what's going on, the listener would have to start at the beginning and move all the way through to know what's happening in the latest episode that you've released. This is different than episodic. Episodic episodes are standalone. They don't have any general arc that you have to follow. You don't have to start at the beginning to know what's going on. Your listener can hop in at any point in time and enjoy the content and jump around and not miss a beat. There you have it. A few basic terms to get you on your way to a successful podcasting journey. If you enjoyed this video and would like to learn more about launching a podcast, check out this video over here about how to start a podcast, or check out the link in the description below. Thanks for watching, and as always, keep podcasting.